One isn't.
Now it's unmuted.
I'd like to call the Hayden City Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. This is the second part. This is the regular meeting. It is 5:05. Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Russ McLean, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Abby, we're okay? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Consent calendar 1A, approval of May 11th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. B, approval of Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board wastewater treatment plant facility upgrades payment request. C, approval of Sells right-of-way purchase agreement for Ramsey Honeysuckle Roundabout. D, approval of fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter treasurer statement. E, approval of Spokane to Sandpoint relay event permit application. F, approval of memorandum of understanding for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier marker. G, acceptance of right-of-way dedication and grant of easement. H, ratification of June 2021 payroll. And I, approval of bills for payment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as read?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
I have a couple of questions. And the first question I have is on the bills that we paid. And the first one is on page 2 of 34, and it's a bill to Architects West for $2,640 for a public works facility design. Is that the building we're planning out on Dakota for our future public works building?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
that's what it is.
I know we talked about it, but I didn't know that we had moved forward on it, and that's all. I just wanted to know if that was
Yep,
it.
that's it.
Okay, that's one question. The second question I have is, I know that I answered my question on that one because I thought it was another one. Just one comment, I think that it's great on item 1C that we have got some right-of-way purchase for that roundabout. We're getting closer. And so that's been a long process. Honeysuckle and Ramsey, that roundabout by, west of Walmart, we've been working on making that into a roundabout. So part of the puzzle is acquiring the right-of-way around that proposed roundabout so that we can build it. And we've got one more piece of the puzzle. So I just thank staff for doing all that.
I'm glad you said something, because that one was a surprise, because we told them no. So that's okay.
Maybe I should clarify that. So there was one that was still hanging out there, a very small piece, that they had said they would do it, but they were working through the process. So we figured we should finish that while we could. The two other properties that were the difficult ones, we have not re-engaged.
And I don't want to. They're going to
No,
hold the
this
city up.
is a guy who got a offer a while back, and he came in to meet with us on something else, and he just brought the paperwork in, and we thought, all right, well, we may as well get it while we can.
Okay,
So-
that's fine. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
I think we're okay on communication with respect to many of you. In reading the paper today, it said a hearing, and I thought there's no public hearing. So Mike Patrick apologized for that, just to let you know. But Ed, and talking to Ed and some of you knew that. But Caitlin, would you make sure that we're clear on the goals of the meeting tonight?
Yes, so we did a code amendment a few years ago. We used to require 2 public hearings, one before planning and zoning. and then a second one at City Council. I've been operating under that code amendment for a while now. We only do one public hearing before planning and zoning. They make a recommendation, whether it's either to approve or deny to you, and then you just consider that record at a public meeting now. So we've done that for some time. We have a section in our code that does allow for a second public hearing if there is a substantive change between the application and planning and zoning. And we've done that before. We've had a hearing that had a substantive change to the application with required to access through the development, so that triggered a second public hearing before you. But generally, and you know, since you've been reviewing preliminary plats, this has not been a public hearing item. It's a public meeting item. So we don't take public, it's not been noticed for public hearing because it's not one. So no legal notice in the paper, no mailing to adjacent property owners within 300 feet, and no posting at the site. So before you tonight is the record that planning and zoning considered. So just Donna presents a brief overview of that, and you deliberate on the record before you. So no public testimony, and no testimony of the applicant either, unless he's here. If you have a question on something submitted that planning and zoning reviewed in the record, but otherwise, no public, or no testimony in general. The record is not reopened.
And we shouldn't say whether or not we wanted the land sold.
That's right, yeah.
But, Mr. Mayor, may I also ask, before you get to the visitor public comment, if we could switch 3A and 4A so the folks here don't have to sit through
Our
our
benefits.
benefit
Oh,
discussion?
that'd be great. With that, however, we do have 4 individuals that have asked for visitor public comment on issues not on the agenda. Russ McLean, and then Ed, and then James, and then Sandy.
You ready? Well, I don't really know how to start this, but the sheriff and the fees that you guys pay, you know, I know how much they are in the budgets. I got all that figured out, but my concerns really is the SRO programs in the school. And if this is in some kind of turmoil or limbo, becomes something that it shouldn't, I just want to make sure you guys have a plan, you know, with Coeur d'Alene or something like that. I pay a lot of money in a bond with the schools for that. And somehow I think the schools should be paying for all of it. But, you know, you guys work it out the best you can. But, you know, that's my biggest concern. I don't think Norris coming in strong-arming for money was appropriate. You know, and that's about as polite as I can be on it. But I just want to make sure you guys got a plan. You know, Deputy Doug, he's a successful program all by himself. And I want to maintain that. And maybe you can get with the schools. I'm sure they'd be willing to pay for the whole thing. You know, if you ask them, they've got the money. We paid for it. But that's all I want. I'm really worried about that. Okay? Have a
You
good
do
night,
know that
guys.
Deputy Doug is no longer an SRO,
No.
so that's just
Is he still with
information for
Whitney
you.
County?
I just am giving you that, you can, yeah,
Is he still with Kootenai County?
yes.
Okay, good. But the point stays the same.
It's even more important. Ed? And I'm sorry, if you can give your name, Russ, I don't know, name and address, please, my fault.
Russell McLean, 2360 East Hayden View Drive in Coeur d'Alene, but we have our fingers in a few pies in Hayden. Okay.
Thank you.
Cherry pies. All right. Okay, let me start my little timer here. Okay, good evening already, I think. I'm a member of that advisory group for the regional housing group that's going on, as much as that really means anything. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the ACI and the shared tier, which is in the county as it relates to all of the cities. I've had discussions
Ed,
with
did you do name and address? I'm sorry, just had some.
Ed Dupreez, 8116 North Stonehaven Drive, Hayden.
Thank you.
Okay, I've had conversations with more than one of you up there, and I've spoken with Coeur d'Alene council people and Rathdrum council people, and even, I believe the county planner, Mr. Callahan, has it in that white paper. And there's regarding the elimination of the shared tier. And there's kind of a, although they won't admit it, a land grab going on that strip between Hayden and Wyoming to, who gets it first is what it appears to be. But the people I've talked to said, yeah, it might be a good idea to eliminate it. But at the last meeting of the regional group, it was suggested that it had to go through the city planning and legal department to get together to deal with the issue. I guess the regional housing group isn't going to deal with it. So my request to you is to respectfully request that your planning and legal people reach out to the other cities and just get the borders set so that we stop playing the game that's kind of going on there. Another subject, as was the workshop, and I've kind of watched this discussion with the mixed use issue. And in my opinion, and from observation, and it's just mine, and everybody really knows where I stand, and yes, my bias about it, it looks like there's a difficulty coming off of that projection for the 35 or 36,000 people in the next 15 to 20 years, and as such, are reluctant to come off of that number to achieve that through various forms of zoning, and where the mixed use is probably going to be the most dense and facilitate reaching that number eventually. I hear that there's proposal to lower it to 15 or 18, and at the workshop 12, and I agree with 12 as a baseline. I see proposals for incentives and the like, which incrementally allow it to be increased if they put a balcony on it, or there are a number of different things. But that density is going to facilitate people density. And this is what it's really about, the people density that bring the traffic, that bring the crowding to the classrooms, that bring the crowding just about everywhere you go. And if you lower that dwelling density per acre, dwelling units per acre, you're more likely to lower that eventual total density number over time, which will hopefully mitigate to some degree your traffic and your crowding in your schools and things like that. There's talk about also that the major issue is traffic. Well, schools are also a major issue with what all this density is bringing. And they say, well, you don't notice these multi or mixed use dwellings, they're set back. You might not notice them when they're there, but you notice them when they come out and they get in their cars and they go to the store and they go to the school. So you notice them on the streets, even though you might not notice the building that might be set back a bit. As I said, if it were up to me, I'd set it at 12 and say that's it. No special use, no conditional use, no way to kind of, wiggle around and increase the density. Set it and keep it there. I hear a lot about what the people of Hayden have told the planning department and the council as to what they want to see the city to be. The people of Hayden did not tell the city that they want this to be a people-dense city. I can't find anywhere in the summary of public input here in the comments where anybody said that they want it to be a people-dense city. What I do see a lot of is comments in here is to control the growth and to keep the small town feeling. Please do as the people wrote in the comments, okay, in their public input summary to the comprehensive plan when considering the end number for the mixed use decision. Also, kind of in my last 30 seconds here, there was discussion about project to project. Sitting there listening to that, I think that you need to put a number on it. Like I said, maybe a baseline number, and then go from there, because if you leave it somewhat open-ended, one of the count, I think Mr. Panabaker brought, that just kind of leaves it open to a can of worms. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thanks. And so with respect to, Brett, are you on that coalition?
I am. Melissa's has been participating more with that.
Is there concern with respect to city limits and land use?
There wasn't. It got brought up at one time, but I didn't come away with the same feeling that Ed just talked about.
Okay, but if where there is, I just want to make sure that we,
No.
Okay, move forward. James. Full name and address, please, good sir.
Yes. The name is Jim, or James DeVliger, 11377 North Drover Drive in Hayden. Honorable Mayor and distinguished council members and distinguished city staff, I feel really honored to be able to take a few minutes of your valuable time to express just a little background of where I'm coming from in regards to the growth and development of Hayden. My wife and I and daughter and son-in-law and grandson migrated here, very fortunately, landing a residence in Hayden. And we feel very blessed to have done that. The small town flavor of Hayden was an extreme attraction to us. And we are very enthused to continue that feel. We come from a city in Southern California, no, embarrassing to say that, but it started out as just a lemon capital of California, Corona, California. It was a very small town. My wife and I were married there and lived there for 45 years in the same house. And when we pulled up roots, needless to say, it was an extreme challenge. We were both pack rats. But at any rate, the city of Corona was a small town. And through at the time, during the period of time that we were there, I had a business. It was a drafting business, architectural firm. And I served on the planning commission, had the opportunity there. And during that time, Corona was going through a tremendous growth process, a real extreme pressure to develop. The citrus growers had lost the value of their industry. The citrus industry was no longer a viable industry. So a group of them, about 100 of them, property owners, decided, let's band together and get rid of this stuff and make some money on it. So consequently, during my tenure on the Planning Commission, there was a tremendous amount of pressure to develop. The city went from 45,000 in 1992, 93 to, when we left, over 150,000. That is not a good thing for a city. With development, you get the mixed growth, the high density development. You get some of the scattered large homes, custom homes, and you get the compressed housing. And along with that, with the compressed housing, with the higher density, you start picking up disadvantages like crime, traffic. Crime is a big thing. You start picking up, it becomes an attraction to homeless. When we moved here, that was such a pleasant thing, homeless. And lo and behold, just in the last year, I've seen 2 or 3 or 4 homeless people. Along with that, while we're trying to be good Samaritans and take good care of our fellow people, they don't particularly appreciate it. And along with it comes more and more crime. And anyway, I urge you to use every consideration to maintain a sense of small community. It's a valuable commodity, something once it changes, you'll never be able to recover from it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I think it's appropriate. Sandy White.
Hello, my name is Sandy White. I live at 939 West D Court in Hayden, and I'm grateful to be allowed to speak today. The first thing I'd like to mention is that I would like to make a formal request that the meetings that go on in this room get recorded and are put up on the city's YouTube channel. I know this meeting is, and I'm very happy about that. For the past 4 meetings, these have been up on YouTube, and it's been very helpful. The meeting we just had about the special meeting about zoning and everything was so important, and I really wish that that had been video recorded because you had maps and illustrations and many things going on. I think it would be valuable to the people, the citizens. I know it was audio recorded, and that can be requested, but that's not the case in the other meetings. I think the planning and zoning meetings would be very valuable if they were also video recorded. And also Hayden Urban Renewal Agency meets in here too. And I've been attending their meetings for the past 2 months. And what they're doing is really interesting, and I think the people would really benefit from having that on YouTube. So I know that some of these videos are available if you request them, but then you have to pay for them. And as a taxpayer, I would just love to have it on YouTube and have it available. If I can't make a meeting, I can make up and go back and watch it. But thank you for doing the last few. It's really been helpful. I've really appreciated having the last few city council meetings up. I've been taking a look at the spreadsheet of the future land use map requests and everything. And it's been really interesting to see what the 1,700 people who have been given these zone map letters, what they've been saying and what they want. One thing that just caught my eye is that there are 750 acres of agricultural land that's going to become light industrial in that zoning. So, and then there's 99 acres of agriculture becoming mixed use. And I'm just thinking all that agriculture going rezoned in one fell swoop is just shocking to me. And that's just like 15 of the changes of the 1,700 in the chart. And so I'm just starting to investigate it and watch it, but though that's what stood out at me is so much of our agriculture being rezoned all at once. And then I noticed that there were 518 of the multifamily residential homes had their zones removed all at once in April. And I've heard talk that with the new rezoning, if it's over 200, they need to notify people, but I never got a notification before that multifamily residential was removed, and that was over 500 parcels. So I want my zone back. And then after watching the last workshop we were just in, seeing how many, and going down Hayden Ave, or Government Way, and seeing how many apartments there are, there's more apartments here than I thought. But I think Hayden needs to really watch out about the density, and I say no mixed use. And I'm even questionable about the mixed residential. And so I just think that Hayden really needs to watch the density and the growth. So thank you so much for letting me speak and sharing my thoughts tonight.
Thanks, Sandy. We're going to move 4A to 3 and replace 3A, or just flip-flop 3A and 4A. So action item, new business, PZE 21-0109 Hayden Meadows subdivision, preliminary plat request. Donna?
evening. Tonight we're here to look at Hayden Meadows subdivision. This name will actually change from Hayden Meadows. I kept thinking it sounded familiar, but I couldn't figure out why. And Ash Street that comes in off of Hayden Avenue to the east of this project was also Hayden Meadows, but that was actually a subdivision that occurred before I started at Hayden. So there's a slight excuse anyway. So that will change before they plat. So as a background, the project location is south of Hayden Meadows Elementary School. It's east of North Maple Street and it's west of North Finucane Street. There is a boundary line adjustment that was occurring with 3 of the properties to develop the rear yards of those properties with 2 lots that had frontage on North Maple Street and the recently sold property south of the Hayden Meadows Elementary School. The development team, the applicant and engineer of record, Scott MacArthur, he's in the back. If you have any questions, specifics, raise your hand. There he is. From MacArthur Engineering, and the owners are Kuka Land LLC. So that is a better rendition of where it is located. As you can see, it butts up against that North Ash Street to the east, to the west, Maple Street right along there. Effectively picking up this backyard here, this one here, and this one here. And it has access to Finucane through Secretariat. So that is the proposed plat, again, through Secretariat Lane. And the road names are actually going to change because there's too many of them. So we're going to reduce that down as well. But through Secretariat, looping around through a knuckle, to the south. This area in the back is also a large back lot area, and they're going to propose to extend that so that at some time in the future, if it were to develop, it would have a road to connect to. Then a connector road here, a short cul-de-sac, a knuckle, and then out onto North Maple Street. So I'm going to go through the standards of approval. They were in your staff review. Items 1 and 2 have to do with infrastructure and can it be constructed to function in a manner that promotes health, safety, and welfare. And infrastructure, can it be constructed and located in an orderly manner? These are all evaluated through the various analysis. So with respect to the water supply and the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District requirements, we received a will serve letter from Avondale Irrigation District on May 3rd. That's in your packet. And comments from Northern Lakes Fire Protection District as it relates to construction plans and the time of construction. That was received on May 24th. With relationship to sewer, a will serve letter was provided by the city on May 28th of 2021, and gravity sewer shall be throughout the project site and will be connected into Finucane Drive through Secretariat. In addition, the developer shall construct an oversized sewer line to the project's north boundary, which is part of the solution to solve a capacity problem with the gravity sewer mains in Hayden Avenue and Finucane Drive. I wanted to backtrack just briefly so you could see that on a picture. So they're extending that sewer through this easement area into the northern extents of their property so that at some point in the future we can extend it on through the school property and correct that issue in Hayden Avenue. And so then I wanted to show this. This is out of the city's 2020 collection system master plan update, and it identifies this Hayden Avenue upgrade as one of the projects on that sewer master plan. And then a further showing here of where it goes through here and connects through Secretariat and into Finucane.
Right, there's 3 options shown there, right?
Correct.
There's one that goes down Finucane, and then there's 2 options kind of through this property that is looking to subdivide.
Exactly. So related to snow storage and stormwater and snow storage shall be reviewed at the time of the construction plan review in accordance with Title 8. And then based on the information, when you're looking at streets and whether or not a project needs to have a traffic impact analysis, the city adopted standards as to when a traffic analysis is triggered. And based on the information provided for the 53 homes replacing the existing use as a soccer field, the development does not hit the trigger of an increase of 75 peak hour trips or 500 daily trips, and therefore a traffic study was not required.
Question. What about consideration of the proximity to an elementary school? Has that no consideration in that trigger?
It's not.
It's not.
Should it be? Question is, should it be?
I can say it's not in the code today, so.
But shouldn't it be considered for the safety of the children in that school?
The school district did provide comments as a relationship to the project site as well. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, I'm just
But how
saying
does
that they
that,
didn't address that as a concern in their letter.
had they, would that have triggered the required traffic study? No.
It doesn't meet one of the triggers in our policies.
So with respect to Maple Street frontage, the boundary line adjustment for all 3 lots that are part of a BLA, our code requires that they have to provide frontage improvements if one of the lots were to develop. So we have 3 lots that were part of a BLA, and 2 of those lots front onto Maple Street. And our code says, in our boundary line adjustment code, it says that if a lot, any one of those 3 were to develop, then all of the frontage improvements would be required to be constructed. However, as none of the proposed residential lots of the subdivision will have frontage on Maple Street, the dedication of the right-of-way and the granting of the utility easement shall be a condition of the subdivision. The development of Maple Street frontage is not required. We're proposing that it not be required as part of this project. Sidewalks on Maple and on Hayden are existing deficiencies, and the need is not caused by this development. So again, I want to go back to this picture, and I apologize for bouncing back and forth, but it's easier to see. So the lots that were a part of the subdivision included this lot here, which kind of goes in there, and this lot here, which kind of goes like that. This lot is omitted. So if we were to require them to build the frontage improvements, put in the curb, swale, and sidewalk, you would literally have a sidewalk that would run from here to here, nothing here. This is a road access point, and then from here to here. And there's nothing south of this project and nothing north of this project. So we're not disagreeing in any way, shape, or form. The staff is not disagreeing that sidewalks should be on Maple Street, but that's not a condition that's being, it exists as a need today, not as a need of this particular, it's not exacerbated by this subdivision. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Could you repeat that statement?
Okay.
No, just the last part of that.
Oh,
I kind of thought I heard it, but I wasn't sure.
The subdivision itself isn't creating the required need for sidewalks from Honeysuckle to Hayden, is what I'm saying.
But I thought you said it didn't exacerbate the problem.
We're anticipating that students from this subdivision are going to go to the east and up Fanouken, along the shoulders of Fanouken and into the elementary school, and not be going up and down Maple Street. Because they're not going to go to the west to get to a school that's to the northeast.
What about the traffic? Does that create a hazard?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, I met with Deputy Doug, who was the resource officer, who's no longer at Hayden Meadows, about 4 years ago, because there was a problem of the safety of students as they were walking up and down Maple, not only without snow, but when snow happens, we have berms, and there's no sidewalks, and they have to walk in the street. And if you live within, I think it's a mile, I'm not sure the requirement by the rule by the school district, that you don't have bus, you're not bused to the school. So kids are either driven or they walk. And his biggest concern is, and I went over and spent a half a day with him, and I watched in the morning, and then after school, and then we talked at lunch or coffee, and he explained to me how the safety issue that has existed there for a while concerning children that are walking on the streets near the school. And so I'm very aware that that problem has existed for a while. The problem is to fix the problem would be very, very costly to provide sidewalks and get right-of-way. There are old 100-year-old trees along Maple. There are power poles right in where you could put a sidewalk. I know it's a safety problem now. I don't see that putting that many houses in is going to help the problem.
On a proportionality aspect of that project on our CIP that we're talking about for transportation plans, what Dawn is referring to, and we looked at, and I looked at for the staff, is that's a current existing deficiency. So it doesn't trigger, certainly not this one, the proportionality of it to fix a current problem. You recall under the Impact Fee Act, we charge impact fee for it, but we already have it. It's not borne by new growth. That's what I'm talking about, isn't limiting. I'm not saying it's the safety one way or the other. I'm talking about your restrictions of impact fee and our study for it. And so when we look at what are we charging on the proportionality of it, an entire infrastructure project doesn't meet that under the Impact Fee Act.
My question is this: does this create greater risk to the safety of the kids that go to Hayden Elementary School, yes or no? Yes. Well, that's the issue. It's not the funding, it's the safety of the kids.
Two things just for clarity, and we got to be careful. You're welcome here, but just be careful on comments. Is that as I read in preparation for this, two things. From a Maple standpoint, Maple's been difficult for a long time, but we only get a certain piece of Maple anyway, even if we demand it, which is not bad anyway. We've seen other streets with that. But most of the migration, and I did talk to Doug about this just not very long ago. So the issue, Matt, when you and I were talking to Doug, was the corner of Maple and Hayden and coming across Hayden, and then they were looking at the other school. In this case, they anticipate many of the individuals being able to use a sidewalk around Finucane and to move across to Finucane, not over to Maple and above. That's what I understood as I read. So that, I don't know that answers your question. It just provided me with, because I wanted to know what options existed for the kids. Because those are my friends, and I wanted them to be safe. So from the 53, but they anticipated that most of them, and Don, I don't mean to take your, just so I was trying to figure out that answer, is that the migration or the walk would be to Finucane, up to Hayden, and then over, and not to Maple. And part of that is because I don't want anybody to walk on Maple.
So Matt, to answer your question, staff reached out to Coeur d'Alene School District because of that sewer main that's going, that larger sewer main that's going to the north boundary, butts up against the school district's southern line. And so we reached out to them and said, is there any way that you could put a gate in there and potentially man that gate so that you could open it up in the morning so the kids could walk right from the subdivision and through the gate and into the school, and then man that gate at the end of the day, so that the kids could leave by the same way. And so they are going to put a gate in, but again, it comes down to budget and whether or not they can cost effectively cover somebody manning that gate, because it's not just the students in this subdivision, but it's all students that they need to maintain their safety. So the staff did reach out to them. We did request that.
And Donna, just for clarity, where would that gate have been located?
Yeah. They would walk on sidewalks within the subdivision, because that's required within the subdivision, through a dedicated easement for that sewer main and through a gate into the back field area that's back here. So that request was made.
But we have no idea what the effect of traffic is on the safety of that school, because there's not been a trigger to tell us what the safety concerns are. Is that true or false?
Yeah, our code doesn't require it, not our policy
So we
doesn't.
have no study to say if it's a safe situation or not.
Yeah, I mean, since our code doesn't require it, it's certainly not going to be, the applicant isn't going to be held to a standard we don't have.
So are we more concerned about the developer or the kids?
I'm just saying, we don't have the standard, so we're not going to apply it to anybody. It's not a standard we have in our policies, therefore, it wasn't applied.
Can we move on with the?
Yeah. So the process is that we do the staff review, we publish the staff review on the city's website so that the public has the opportunity when they get their notice to review the entire record that we have before them, that we do that with every project. And then at the, prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, we compile all of the responses that we'd received to date based on the cutoff date of the written comments that come in, and we supply a supplemental memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission with those comments, and they were really good comments. I made that comment at Planning and Zoning Commission. The comments that we received were very direct. They looked at our plans. They gave us good concerns. They read the information. They were really good comments, probably the best comments I've seen in a really long time. So the memo of the Planning and Zoning Commission that was in your packet identified the public comments received. There were 3 neutral and 11 opposed, and the major item of concern was that safety on Maple Street. The project is not anticipated again to generate 75 or more trips in the peak hour, and it did not require a traffic study. We confirmed, based on information of one of the comments, that was pulling information, and he did a really good job pulling information out of that traffic study, out of our transportation strategic plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we did call our consultant, and she did some, tried to figure out where he was pulling it and what have you, and we did confirm that this area was anticipated to redevelop. So all of the land use and the way it was proposed had been addressed in the transportation impact study.
No, the
Transportation strategic plan. Thank you. So then if you just applied some general traffic assumptions and you split the traffic between Maple Street and Finucane, you'd get about 26 vehicles in the peak hour per street. So the previous use as a soccer field, the ITE manual estimates 16.43 trips per soccer field with 6 fields. That yields an estimated 99 trips during the peak hour. However, all of those vehicles only used Finucane Drive. So redevelopment on this parcel anticipated in the transportation plan, and density is in line with the assumptions. Therefore, the change in use would likely be an overall decrease in traffic, although it's only going to be really decreased on on Finucane. It'll see a slight increase on Maple. So internal streets shall be constructed at ST 111 and 111A. Each of those will have type 2 street frontage installed at the time of building permits. Landscaping associated with any green space tracts or joint stormwater swales shall be constructed and required as part of the subdivision phase, and that irrigation shall be responsibility of a property owner, and the structural maintenance shall be the responsibility of the POA. Connectivity to the school may be provided through a gate on the south side of the school property at the location of the future sewer line to the north boundary of the project site for emergency ingress egress. And geohazard stabilization measures shall be addressed at construction plan review, and all utilities shall be installed underground within the development in accordance with Title 12. So provisions have been made for driveway location. So the final location of driveways shall be reviewed by the city to address conflicts with utility and snow storage locations. No lots shall have any form of access onto North Maple Street or North Ash Street or West Country Squire Lane. Those lots with frontage on 2 internal streets, otherwise double-loaded lots, may have access on each street for a total of 2 accesses. However, all primary access points shall be facing on the same street and shouldn't be a mix back and forth. And the mailbox location shall be determined based on the U.S. Postal Service and the City of Hayden requirements. So as you can see, this is the zone map, and it's in yellow, which is residential single family. And the residential single family zone provides for a classic Hayden neighborhood where single family homes are allowed on smaller lots. Accessory dwelling units are permitted, but 2-family dwellings are not.
Question. How long has it been in R1 zone? Just roughly.
I don't know when it wasn't.
Decades? Yeah.
I don't know when it wasn't.
It's been for quite a while. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
So another one of the concerns that came out of the comments that came in is how does this fit with the area around us? How does this fit with the neighboring subdivisions? So the real Hayden Meadows that's existed and developed on Ash Street has 27 dwelling units per acre, 27 dwelling units and 3.66 dwelling units per acre, with a minimum lot size of about 10,500 square feet and a maximum of about 13,000 with an average at about 12,000. Finucane Estates, directly to the east, has 51 dwelling units and 2.85 dwelling units per acre. And their lots range anywhere between 11,000 and 26,000. Maple Place has 20 dwelling units there to the south of this, with dwelling units per acre of 3.38, with lots ranging between 10,000 and 14,000, or almost 15,000. Woodland Meadows, further to the south, has 233 dwelling units, and they come in at 3.79 dwelling units per acre. And their minimums, their houses lots range between 8,250 and 20,000. Castlewood Court, which is farther to the east, has 52 dwelling units with 4.22 dwelling units per acre. And they have a range between 8,500 and a little over 16,000. And the Hayden Meadows, as proposed here to be renamed as First Edition or some other name, is proposed to have 53 dwelling units at 3.32 dwelling units per acre, with a range between 8,250 and 15,000. So just as a kind of a gander of where we're at, so this is where we're looking in here. This is Ash Street, 27 at 3.66. Finucane Estates to the east at 2.85. Maple Place, again to the south, of 3.38. Woodland Meadows at 3.79, farther to the south. And then Castlewood, which is, hop, skip, and a jump this way, at 4.22.
Donna, access of Castlewood, is that totally onto Strayhorn?
Yes.
Okay. So that entire development is only accessed out of one egress?
Yes.
Okay.
So in your staff review, you have a pretty lengthy comprehensive plan analysis. It had 8 goals and 5 or 6 policies attached to those goals, and then it had 3 action items. So all on-site and off-site improvement shall be required of the developer, extension of infrastructure per the adopted city codes, standards, and plans, and then those mitigating improvements as required. So agency notice was sent to 20 agencies. Avondale Irrigation District had no comments. The Coeur d'Alene School District did have comments related to the impact on the existing school, where they anticipated more growth will occur in the future. And they also requested that access to the rear of the school site through the subdivision. Harbs had no comments. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District had comments related to construction of the subdivision. Coeur d'Alene Airport had no comments. So in my memo to the council, we provided the written public agency comments received prior to the staff review, the written public comments received by the date to be in the memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the written public comments received after the memo to Planning and Zoning Commission and prior to the public hearing and added to the record but not read into the record. The memo identified the public comments received with the comments attached. Some comments were duplicated. Some comments were both written and done by public testimony. But in total, there were 3 neutral. They talked about the safety on Maple Street, motorized, non-motorized. One person requested a cyclone fence with privacy slats. One requested a flashing stop sign at Maple Street and Honeysuckle. There were 14 in opposition. Safety and traffic on Maple Street. They believed the project was too dense, believed it changed the character, concerned about police protection, raising taxes and sewer bills, loss of soccer fields and green space. So I've kind of summarized the conditions of approval. The first 3 are pretty much general conditions of approval that talk about dedications and easements, and that they have to appear on the plat, and have to address joint stormwater as well as the sewer easement. Permits from outside agencies to include Panhandle Health and IDEQ and Avondale Irrigation District, Northern Lakes Fire Protection District, and any approvals for with the master development agreement for the subdivision will run with the land.
What was the recommendation from Planning and Zoning?
To approve the subdivision with staff recommended conditions -1. Was unanimous.
Okay.
So no lot shall have access to North Maple, North Ash Street, or East Country Square Lane. No approaches on the south end of Mills Drive to address that snow storage. Double loaded lot shall have access onto both roadways, but primary must be facing the same street. And the final location of all addressable structures shall be approved by the city. The construction plan submittal shall include the internal streets to an ST 111 and 111A. 5B was removed because they shifted the road alignment to the south, which shortened the distance, so they weren't required to have a turnaround from the fire department or the city. Erosion control measures shall be provided, sewer according to the city's plans, and oversized sewer main to the north boundary of the subdivision. Concurrence from the U.S. Postal Service regarding mailbox locations. Sometimes they want them in places we don't want them, so we kind of work together to make that work. Dry grass mix shall be applied until individual lots are constructed. Installation of landscaping requirements, swale construction, irrigation, and maintenance, street frontage landscaping requirements, sanitary sewer oversizing mitigation. So the developer could request reimbursement for oversizing of those sewer lines that we are having them extend to the northern boundary. However, the developer has requested that the construction of those frontage improvements, those piecemealed sidewalks, frontage improvements on Maple Street be waived instead. So that 50-foot sewer easement shall be provided for the 18-inch sewer line from Secretariat Lane to the north boundary of the subdivision in accordance with the sewer policies, and a minimum of a 16-foot gravel access centered on the sewer main within that 50-foot easement. So the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the subdivision, having met the standards of approval with the staff recommended conditions, with the removal of condition 5B, that paved turnaround, since they shifted it to the south. All commissioners were present and all voted in favor. So the city council may approve with conditions, or deny the subdivision request.
Go ahead.
At the risk of seeming old and living in the past, when I was mayor in the late 80s, when this thing was proposed, and School District 271 was looking for a site to build that school. And Keith Tolson was the superintendent at the time, and he and I walked all the available sites out here trying to find a suitable site. They came up with that one. So he went to the school board and said, yeah, they want to buy it, but they only wanted to buy half of it. And I think it was a 20-acre parcel, but I don't remember exactly. And he told me about it, and I says, don't do that. I said, you buy a 10-acre parcel, 10 or 15 years from now, you're going to want to remodel a school, and you won't have any room to grow. And it happens time and time again. You have more students, you need the space. You're going to be looking for a new place to build another school. So they agreed, and they bought that acreage that we're talking about right now for the intent of either using it for an investment, which it's turned out to be, or for site expansion. The reason I'm asking that question is, how full is that school right now? And will the growth that we're seeing now, and another, how many children will be with 53 homes there, overfill that school? How are they going to expand the school, or are they going to want to build another school? And that's what they always do, and they've done it forever.
So I would have to find his letter in here. I mean, they recognize that so what they recognize is that they sold the land, right? That they went through a planning process, kind of when we were doing our comp plan, kind of paralleled that, where they looked at where their needs were. So they knew when they sold this land that it would likely develop into what it's developing into, because that's what it was zoned. So they've taken that into consideration. They've also looked at where the growth is generally occurring in their district, and it's not on this side of the city. So they sold the land to get land elsewhere.
Okay, but it will be some growth. Just what they're putting on the land that they're selling is another, how many, what, 2.3 children per home and 50-some homes? You're going to have,
I don't know those numbers.
I don't know what the answer is. Okay.
Yeah.
That was not the intent of them buying that to start with. They wanted to have room to grow should they need to grow, and they always do need to grow. One other thing, on Fanouken Drive.
It's page 44 of 120 in this. It's page 44 of 120 in your packet. I just wanted to bring that up when you asked about it.
On Fanouken Drive, when the homes were built down there, and some of the homes on Fanouken Drive were less than a year old, and they had a little problem. The sewer got too high in the pipes and flooded the basements of those new homes down on Fanouken Drive. And so they came in and they pumped them all out. These were brand new homes at the time, and I remember it well because people were really upset, which they should have been. Came in and they fixed that and all that. Less than 6 months later, it did it again. It flooded the same house. The basements were full of effluent, is what it was. So what they did to fix that is they made them put check valves on all those sewer hookups down there, which apparently has done the job for a lump. My question, apparently there's a elevation problem there, and that showed up in other places at the time. Now, if they put in a 53 home subdivision there and they started running a lot more effluent into this same area on the same pipeline that they had the problem before, what's that going to do? I don't feel like stupid for asking that question. We've been through this before.
I think that's a great question. The current master plan does not show that this is going to cause a problem on that deal. It does show that line does need, at some point, will have to be upgraded. And that's part of the reason that we have an oversizing line going in. That line will actually take the sewer, at the time that we're able to make that connection, and it is something the city will have to complete at some point, it will bypass a large portion of that line in Fanouken, and that will only make us replace a short section in Fanouken. So it will take the load off of the existing system for the most part, probably 80% of it. And it means we'll only have to fix like 20%
Alan, that's really important. Can we go look and can you point that out on the map and then point out where the flow is going to be? Because the problem is that there's not a lot of elevation change there. And we were around when it flooded. So, or backed up, I guess is the right.
Oh, yeah, well, it filled the basements. That was not nice.
I'm going to
You're fine.
If I don't stand in your way.
So what we're proposing, they're putting in this green line right here. It's not exactly like that, it goes over and however it goes. But,
So it's going to flow south?
so the intent is that Hayden, flowing sewer, the sewer in Hayden, which comes from the north on Government Way. So it comes down Government Way, turns at the elementary school, the old elementary school at Hayden Lake, comes down Hayden. It currently comes down Fanouken. This will disconnect here. All this flow will then come down this line, connecting here. This line, the load on this line will be significantly reduced, leaving only this portion to be replaced by the city in the future. This is completely a city project. There's nobody ever going to do that for us other than maybe an LID or something. So
But we were close, just for
being able to
clarity.
reduce the load on this is going to be huge. This flow will not touch this section line. It's only going to touch this
So let's
section.
talk about that, because how close are we to having to repair that now?
It didn't show up as a near term, that in the near term we were going to have a problem. It just shows up, it's going to.
So how long will it be before we have a responsibility? I mean, at some point, if the 53 didn't come in, that's the question. Okay.
New study and look at it to be able to answer that question. But I know it wasn't in the 5-year.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And then I have an answer for Dick's other question. So the school district estimates that this subdivision will generate between 32 and 35 students. And then I'm going to read a little bit out of his letter. It says, we recognize that this development is largely on property the school district recently sold. While the development will have impact on the surrounding schools, the district has identified a higher priority need to further acquire land on the west side of the district where we anticipate much larger rates of growth. Proceeds from this sale will help the district acquire land in areas slated for growth on a larger scale where the district does not currently have adequate land holdings. So they made the decision. He has a website in here on where you can look at their district's long-range facility plan, but they made the decision based on that plan.
I do recall when they put that property up for bid, we did try to respond and try to secure that property. It would have been adequate park space for the city. Obviously, we weren't the high bidder, but the city did make an effort to try to obtain that property.
There is a
We
history
weren't
there,
close,
isn't
but
there?
we did try. We did try.
You mean to reacquire? Thank you.
Where do you want me to go?
Wherever you, I mean, if your conclusion, then we'll take comments and questions from members of the council. Any questions? Councilmember DeLange, we'll start with you and work down.
Donna? In regards to the gate may be installed there, but what's the alternative if it's not?
So the gate is going to be, the gate is going to go in. The question is whether or not it'll be open or not, whether or not it'll be manned to be opened or not.
Okay.
And so the alternative is to go to Fanouken.
Okay.
And up Fanouken. Fanouken does not have sidewalks on it. It does have like fog lines on either side, so it does designate a road lane and then off the road area.
Okay.
To be clear, and that was done many years ago as well.
Okay, thank you. Then in regards to the sewer line, if the developer has requested that Maple Street frontage improvements be waived if he puts in the oversized sewer pipe. And I understand the importance to the city, but I'm just wondering about the cost for making the, like improvements on Maple Street. Is it going to be comparable? How is that determined?
Yeah, we went, so the city engineer, Rob Wright, and I and Caitlin, we were all involved in cost estimates and figuring out if this was an equitable decision to make. And Caitlin was involved in all the proportionality of what we could require of a developer. And it's pretty much a wash. The cost of the oversizing that sewer pipe for him versus putting in the sidewalks. But the benefit to the city is much more than that because we don't have to go through and tear up Finucane all the way down and have all the, it's a pretty deep sewer pipe. So we'd probably have to repave most of Finucane to get that sewer pipe in Finucane. So it's a huge cost savings for the city, and to the developer, it's pretty much a wash.
I think on the plan for the sewer master plan, that project is between $200,000 and $300,000. So
Yeah,
that's
they,
a large savings.
They estimated it with like today's construction costs, which are a little higher at, I thought it was like 300,000.
So that's the consideration on the city side of hundreds of thousands off of a sewer item. As Alan just mentioned, that's a significant project if we can get that. Obviously ideal to get it in bare land so we don't have to do surface restoration on streets.
Okay, thank you.
And for those homeowners on Finucane too, to have their whole street torn up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Roger?
Donna, as I'm looking at the plat map here, it's showing entrance exit off of Finucane. Could you bring that up, please? Yeah. Okay, so that's Finucane, where that, what is it, Secretariat Lane?
Secretariat. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there going to be, when people pull to exit, is there going to be any sort of turn lane if they want to go left? Or is it just going to be just two?
Just two local access roads.
And then the other one goes out and comes out on Maple. Was there any other alternatives looked at, or is there any alternatives feasible to keep that traffic off of Maple?
I mean, the connectivity through to Maple was actually a request of city staff. That wasn't their first. What was this, Scott? Your 20th rendition? Yeah. So that request to have connectivity through to Maple was a city staff recommendation instead of having all of this come out onto using one access point.
I think it's a fire requirement.
And it's also a fire requirement.
It's a fire
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, yeah, I knew we
like connectivity because it gives people options on different roads to drive so that we're not so concentrated with traffic on any one road.
And also in the future, at some point, we anticipate that when this lot, whatever happens with it, when it develops at some point down the road, that there may be connectivity to the south as well. So,
because we're going to put a roundabout there
Right.
on the
4th and Honeysuckle.
corner.
Right.
So I was, I'm just letting my mind wander a little bit. So I'm a little curious, is the comments we've gotten from people, they mainly addressed Maple, not Finucane.
Correct.
And Finucane, I drive Finucane every day. And I have concerns with Finucane because people want to go too doggone fast because it's a little wider street. But let's go to Maple. My understanding for Maple is, in reality, is that ever going to really ever have a sidewalk or get widened because of trying to obtain right-of-way from people? I mean, that's been a narrow street ever since I've been here, 60 years, so.
I mean, I think it's important. That's why it's identified in the transportation plan. So to get a sidewalk on that. I mean, we heard from the citizens before when we were doing the transportation plan about the need for sidewalks. So I think we need to consider doing it. It's identified in the plan. It's not easy. I agree with you. Alan and I have brainstormed this section of road hours and hours trying to figure it out. It's not an easy one. It's narrow, the right-of-way is narrow, so yeah, it would be a lot of right-of-way acquisition. The developer did, across all those properties, dedicate the right-of-way. So, because that's something that Caitlin says every time is, whatever you do, get the right-of-way. So we have the right-of-way. It just, to staff, seemed like there's a need. There's absolutely a need for sidewalks on Maple. How we get there, I don't know, but it's not the responsibility of this subdivision. And then staff, right or wrong, we took the approach with Caitlin's help that it was more of a city benefit to get that 18-inch sewer line in at this point in time than a short section of sidewalk.
And that's staff's thought, and P&Z brought that up, that's in the minutes, you know, you have that kind of dialogue in your packet as well. That was something staff supports. I mean, like I said, I don't have our project list in front of me for sewer, but it's between $200,000 and $300,000, just what we projected it when we did the sewer plan, not at today's construction rates, right, with pipe shortage and everything else. So that's a significant benefit versus, I understand the sidewalks too, but on a city project if you could avoid tearing up all of Fanouken, right, and resurfacing and.
So on Maple, we have the right of way.
We have all the right, yep, we've got the right of way.
For these
Just
three,
property.
Yeah, not all of Maple.
No, can you show them, Donna, where we got?
Draw it out. Okay, I guess use, yeah.
The marker.
Because that's the only place we would ever,
So we've got the right-of-way in this line.
And then all the way across, the road, of course.
All the way across the road.
And where is Hayden Avenue, Donna?
Up north.
Like, way that way.
Way up north.
And then this piece right here.
That piece in the middle was not, that exists. There's another lot there.
There's another lot right there. So
Okay.
that has
doesn't
access
have
onto
continuity.
Maple.
And there is no sidewalk south. This is Maple Place. There's no sidewalk in this built environment. There's no sidewalk up here.
Okay.
Truly is.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going is that, I have concern for the safety of our kids too. My kids used to walk Maple. I have a granddaughter who's probably going to walk Maple. So this is dear to my heart as well. But I go to Lacey Street where you have the sidewalk to nowhere. And okay, we have them improve that, but it's only that section. So the kids are a little safer in that short section is what it boils down to for now.
Right.
And I think Dick asked the question, to obtain the right-of-way, to put in sidewalks for the future and stuff, who will pay for that? Because there's not a lot of land there to develop.
that's an existing deficiency, and the need is developed by the growth that we've had over the last 30 years, not the growth we're getting, the growth that's already here. So it'll have to be paid for by the existing citizens. It's part of their growth.
Exactly, yeah, okay.
So that'll be tax dollars or LID or however we can figure out to get it paid for.
And just one last thing, a traffic study that's been brought up. My experience is I don't know too many developers that are foolish enough to hire a traffic impact company that's going to say, oh, it doesn't work. So, I don't put a lot of credence in traffic studies because they're going to get what they're buying. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Comments, Dick? Matt?
Yeah, I got something weird when he's done.
Go ahead.
Well, here we are back to square one. We're trying to figure out how new growth should pay for itself, and it never does. And I'm not against the development there. I have a little heartburn with the school district for the way they did this. They've come out really well on this, made a lot of money off it. I don't remember ever saying thank you to the city of Hayden for helping them get that when they bought it either. That never happens. But on the second thing, you're talking about making a trade for a sidewalk and not fixing the problem. You're going to put the sewer in, but the kids are still going to be walking on the road, and they're going to, especially on Stray or on Finucane Drive. I mean, we can't fix Maple on this part of this. This is not their responsibility to fix that. But on Finucane Drive, I would think something should be done now while you're doing the whole project rather than wait 20 years from now till the city may or may not have the money to do it. And I don't see the way things are today. We can't pay our thing to the sheriff's department for a contract. We can't pay this. Where the heck are we going to get the money to do it? So, you volunteering?
Well, I'm paying my share. Knows that.
I know.
Thanks, Dick.
I guess it's my turn. I'd like to ask the applicant some questions, if we could have him come forward.
Open the record.
The limitation on that, Councilmember Roeder, is it'd be limited to items in the record because we're not doing a full-on public hearing and no testimony. It's not a public hearing.
Stuff that's in the
You're
record.
saying I can't ask a question of the applicant?
I'm saying you can, but it need to be limited to what planning and zoning reviewed and what's in the record. Because this isn't open to public hearing.
So long as it was an issue addressed in that meeting, then it's okay.
Right.
So if I missed that 140-some pages, you're going to have to correct me, but
I just wanted to mention that for everybody in
I'd still like
fairness.
to address it or ask some questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Scott MacArthur, MacArthur Engineering, P.O. Box 2488, Post Falls, Idaho 83877. Go ahead, Mr. Roeder.
Well, I appreciate you coming up and talking to us about this project. Do you, and I know you're speaking in behalf of your client, so, you know, I know that we're going to take your word as his, basically. Does the owner of the property feel any obligation to maintain safety for the kids at Hayden Elementary School?
Well, I think that's a little bit of a tough question. Of course he does. This development is putting a gate in on the north end of the project. Every kid in this community isn't going to walk out to Maple and go up and around to the north. They're going to go through the development. So the issue lies that anybody to the south that's walking up Maple has the same opportunity to go through the development up to the school rather than take Maple to the north. So you're talking about a short little section of Maple that, again, as staff pointed out, was already a problem. We're not creating that problem or making that problem worse. Excuse me. We are putting in a significant amount of sewer, saving the city a significant amount of money. That was a trade-off. We said, hey, we'll go back to our normal size sewer and we'll put the frontage improvements in on Maple, but again, it's sectional. So that wasn't really benefiting the city anyway, so we purchased the right-of-way. That wasn't just dedicated by the landowners. We had to buy this right-of-way from those landowners to give that to the city. At no benefit to us because we're already putting the sewer in, but we went ahead and purchased that as well. Again, that's one of the biggest costs that comes in when you try to put frontage improvements in is buying the right-of-way from landowners. And so we picked that up, no questions asked. We worked with the city. Again, as Melissa pointed out, we had 26 different renditions trying to make sure we had all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, not just from our perspective. Everyone worked, but we worked with city staff and we worked with the school district. We tried to meet every requirement by not accessing any more roads than just Finucane and Maple and then providing this access to the south. So in my opinion, I think that the developer went over and above to make this happen. It's not an ideal, no development's ideal. That's my job as an engineer to try to figure out what's best for the city and what's best for this development. I'm hired to do that, but I still have an obligation to protect the public safety, health, and welfare. And in my opinion, yes, we are reducing the traffic out to Finucane. Are we adding traffic to Maple? Yes. Maple's a public right-of-way. We dedicated the right-of-way. We're benefiting the city by putting in the sanitary sewer. There's a lot of moving parts. I get it. And like you said, there's 140-some pages in there that It's a lot to read, but I don't know what else the developer could have done to consider the public safety, health, and welfare of the people that are going to live in this development.
Okay, but my main concern are the students.
Correct.
All right, so my question then is, the one thing that I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're going to put a gate in, and that's going to solve the safety problem.
It's an opportunity. I don't see the kids, and forgive me, if the school's here, I don't see the guy that lives right here sending his kid out this way to go around. I see him sending him up to the development to go to the school. Either way, it's a walk, right? And if you're unfortunate, you have to walk like I did as a kid. I'm born and raised. So I just want you to know that there is consideration for that. There's also some consideration too for the people who live around this community too. We don't want to make this a speeding thoroughfare to get from one side to the next. It's not an east-west road. There's connectivity for emergency services and connectivity for those pedestrians using this sidewalk to get east to west. It's not a straight through shot. It was designed that way on purpose. We wanted to make a neighborhood that somebody driving up Maple won't use Maple to get to their home on Fanouken. They'll go down to Fanouken like it was originally proposed. Again, I see the kids in this area taking Maple, cutting through the development, taking the same route. That's a quicker route to the north than going up Maple. It's less dangerous as well. There will be sidewalks on both sides of the street internally. And again, we dedicated the right-of-way to build those sidewalks on Maple when that is a future project. Because this 90 feet, it wouldn't make much sense for kids walking down the sidewalk here, jump back out to the road, back out here, excuse me, and then up here and then back out to the road. It doesn't, I mean, you can do that. I've seen it done all over the city, but that's when you come into a piecemeal project and you're trying to retrofit and tie curbs and sidewalks together. Street sections may change. I mean, we could decide tomorrow that Maple's the new collector in the city and we need to put all the traffic on it and we're going to buy 90 feet each side of the center line. I mean, you never know. So that's the problem that we typically see, which we also see to the south, right here in this development. That right-of-way was obtained years ago, and the street section was built, but doesn't have sidewalk.
So I just want to go back and correct me if I'm wrong, that your sole solution to the problem of public safety for the kids at the Hayden Meadows Elementary School is to put that gate in. Is that it, yes or no?
Well, it's not a yes or no, that's the problem. You wanted me to define that and say that's my sole solution. What about the kids down here? Is there a gate there now? They can't go through this field now.
No, so I'm asking for the future. You're asking us to look at this and say, because the number one priority of the city is the health, safety, and welfare of our community. I mean, we could talk, you're only talking about...
That's my number one priority as an engineer as well.
I know, but you're saying a gate will solve this problem?
What's the alternative, to not put the gate?
Wait a minute, I'm not the engineer, you are.
Okay. That's why I'm telling you what the answer is we've worked with the school district to obtain that gate. The city has talked to those people at the school to say, can you man this gate? They can't leave the gate open, they can't leave the access open because that's a safety issue for the kids during school. So they have to open it during the morning and open it during the afternoon and protect the kids that go through there. And there's an access provider.
Snow, who's going to take care of that gate? Have you ever tried to open up a gate when it's 3 feet of snow?
There's a lot that uses that as a driveway, and part of that purchase is this easement that has to go through there. That has to be maintained.
That's the solution to the public safety, health, and welfare of the students, or that gate. That's the only thing I've heard.
I'm open to suggestions. Again, we worked through this with the city, the school district. I'm open to suggestions. I'm just the engineer. I'm just asking if you can give me what your thoughts would be to fix this.
Okay, well, let's just talk about this. Has anybody noticed how many people are using Maple as a through street north and south? Because Government Way is busy and 95 is even more busy. So we're seeing that overflow, and that's not going to get any better with all these other developments. This is going to contribute to it. And I like to bike, and I'm 65, so I try to get some exercise. And I like to go down Maple to go down to Honeysuckle Beach and take a little drive. And it's narrow there. When people are not even students, let's talk about this pedestrians that are walking along Maple. There's no sidewalks, and bear with me, we have riding a bike is not real safe with with two cars there, barely 2 cars have to be really careful because there's not a lot of room for error. Now, if you take have you seen a little kid do this with their bike because they're wobbling, because they're looking at whatever? That's what I'm concerned about as
Three
a
of those
city
at home,
council
yes.
member is, well, the gate's going to solve all that. It's not going to solve it, and that's my biggest concern.
I get that. The 53 lots in this development and the kids that are associated with this development will have direct access through that gate to their
I'm not just
school.
worried about those,
I
it's all the
understand.
other kids that are within a mile that cannot be bused to the school.
Right. This is going to give them that opportunity to take this route, the same route the kids in this development.
So for the
can take.
kids from the north, are they going to go through that gate?
I didn't cause that problem. That's a problem that exists in the city
Yeah,
already.
but the traffic will exacerbate that.
I anticipate the traffic going west, down to Honeysuckle and down Maple and down Fanouken and west. I don't anticipate, unless you're on a leisurely drive or off to visit a friend, a significant amount of traffic heading north. Maybe during school hours to drop off their kids, the parents who do have time to drop off their kids that aren't working.
Does the housing development add more traffic to the streets in Hayden?
So you
Does
have,
that create a greater risk to the students or not?
but you're asking a very loaded question that I don't think you have.
Well, I need the answer. I'm asking you. You're the expert.
Okay, but that's been presented to you, and I'm not the traffic expert. What we did is we went through city code.
So you don't know?
Okay. We went through city code, and the city code illustrates that there are actually 8 soccer fields, which creates 131 peak trips. 131 peak trips. This development will actually have 2 sources of egress and ingress, one to Maple, one to Fanouken. Those different accesses, these different points trigger us not being required to have a traffic impact study, as Mr. Satterfield mentioned. So we have 2 different scenarios. They're apples and oranges. You're asking for us to compare soccer fields to a residential development. I get it. You're going to create trips per day in a residential development. You also have kids that are going to be playing on these streets. These streets will have curbs, swales, sidewalks, separated, landscapes, and they'll also have an access to the school. Something that's not required, but something that we're working with the school to put in. So yes, that is our solution for the 53 lots that are in this development, which will also benefit any other kids that walk through this development. Also on Fanouken, you have 2 bike lanes, both sides of the street. That's why that street's rather large. And those bike lanes are probably a much safer place for you to ride your bike. That's all I'm saying.
But you have no traffic study to back up what you're saying?
No, I do not.
Okay.
There's not one required.
But you don't have one?
Because there's not one required, yes.
So you don't know?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Any other questions? Just a comment. Thank you, Scott, for being here. Just a comment. Walking up, because I do walk it, Maple terrifies me. From Wyoming down to Honeysuckle and back, and so I try to be careful with my wife. But this does. I know that it might not sound like the right answer, but right now, if those kids have an opportunity off of Maple to be able to access, it appears that this is a much better solution for kids to get to school than to go up. Even if you put in sidewalks, they'd still have to go all the way to Hayden Avenue and walk along Maple. And I mean, it's okay, that's why we discuss, but this is a much better solution for my grandkids than to have them walk up Maple still. And that's the part it's not an easy one, but I mean, if we're talking about pure traffic and safety for the students, I'd rather they walk sidewalks to a gate that needs to be open and needs to be closed and needs to be protected. I mean, Hayden Meadows has access from everywhere, but it's safer to me, it appears, and tell me if I'm wrong. Again, I'm not, than to have them walk all the way up Maple to Hayden.
Okay.
Because that just, I've never liked that.
And just to point another thing out too is, we purchased some additional right-of-way in this area as well that has no bearing on the development whatsoever. We purchased that because the city wants access out to Maple. We can pull back that portion and not build it, but then all the traffic's going out to Fanouken. Then we have another issue of development. We're going back to additional traffic. And we could put a gate across there, and that would make the city happy, but that's going to block out the kids that live south, coming up Maple, going through, using the gate to the school. It's going to push everybody going back up Maple that's already existing with the existing problem. But no, we want to build that and provide that access in and out, which provides emergency services and provides those kids with an access to the school.
And emergency services was a big part. I mean, I'm not part of that, but they want dual access. And that's why I was concerned about the other one off of Strayhorn, that there's only one access into that neighborhood. So
We can put in a gravel road or even a small paved alley that meets fire requirements with a gate. And we can block that entire development off to push everybody back out to Fanouken. I can get approval for that from the fire, but I don't see that being the best interest of the city, the best interest of health and welfare.
That option was discussed at Planning and Zoning. That's in your written for decision and the minutes from that as well. The commissioners deliberating that option. That was the consensus from them, as well as that doesn't really help just to have an emergency access to meet the fire code off of Maple and have everything come off of Fanouken, both for the students and then the traffic issues as well. That wasn't something looking at that the Planning and Zoning Commission was interested in having everything flow out of Fanouken.
Additionally, our access management policies that we currently adopted require 2 access points for over 30 lots, or 30 lots or more. So
I just like to say I'm very passionate about this because when I was in grade school, we lived near Peoples Elementary School and we lived on Peoples Road. And one of my neighbors was killed. It was a busy street. He got hit by a car. And I'll never forget it. I mean, it hits you when your friend gets killed. So I'm passionate about this. And I don't want to see anything like that happen to any of our kids in Hayden. Money is not worth it. Period.
Yes, Jerry?
I have a question. I'm not sure who to direct it to, but I guess maybe to Brett. Does the city have funding anywhere that we could use towards paying the developer for the oversized pipe and then have him put in the sidewalks there on Maple?
We do. That's a code provision you recently adopted. You recently adopted sewer reimbursement policies for oversizing over depth of infrastructure. We also talked about that at Planning and Zoning, that option as well. That is under our code, the election of the developer though, because it's got a lot of requirements in there as far as having that infrastructure obviously held the city code and then going through a procurement process since you're building public infrastructure. But that is new policy, fairly new in this last few months you adopted.
So yeah, in answering your question, it would come out of the capitalization fund for growth. And it's just a matter of allocating that portion for that. 100,000, it's in there.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking that for the safety of our kids, it may be good to have the sidewalks there on Maple. I mean, even though they don't go that far, but it would, in the long run, I think, be safer for kids. And so maybe that's a alternative we could look at.
If I may, what you're buying, and I will tell you that we're getting a lot better deal with what the developer's proposing than the alternative that may be proposed. It would cost us less to put the sidewalks in than it's going to cost us to put the sewer in, substantially less, like a tenth. And we're not really buying much safety with sidewalks that are only, I don't know what those are, those 80 to 100 feet of a half a mile of road. So I think it's certainly an option that the council can consider. I think that from a financial standpoint and from just a bargain standpoint, it's not a good bargain. How's that? It's not a good trade.
Okay, thank you.
What about when shows life?
So, guys, be careful, and we're discussing it, it's okay, yeah. If you've walked on Maple, I mean, just know, right now, it's horrible. This doesn't make it worse, because the kids from there aren't gonna walk.
I apologize.
And so, just be careful, and we're just talking about the cost difference between the two, and the benefit associated with if, in fact, we did put, is Joy here? I thought I saw Joy.
She left.
So if you've ever walked on Lacey, we have the sidewalks that don't go anywhere. What do they call that bridge in Alaska? So, and this would serve as that same thing. So the benefit would be simpler. And what he said was, in terms of understanding the need, whether or not this development comes in or not, but whether or not we understand the sewer need is what they're trying to do. They weren't trying to minimize or economize a life. But right now it's horrible. Right now, Maple's horrible no matter what. And we did have a vote to try to get things done. The millions of dollars that would it take to procure land and build a sidewalk, it would be nice if we approved that, but that's not in existence. So, but the difference was between the capitalization funds available.
Mr. Mayor, so might mention too, it was mentioned earlier, I mean, to really solve the safety issue, I think Caitlin would say it's not the responsibility of the developer to build a sidewalk, half a mile up, that's beyond the reasonable amount that constitutionally could be required. And so, I mean, the other option is to do a local improvement district where, folks in the area all pitch in, or the city. We can't use impact fee money for it because most of it's existing deficiency. We do get some other money that we use for fixing roads. We could come up with some, but I don't think, that would be a significant project. But I'm just saying the other alternatives is we get serious and try to start working on Maple, which is in the plan to try to do. And make that a priority. So
I just miss, if we're all here, I don't know how many were here in 1970, all that was Black Angus, as was the other side next to the barn where others developed and put. So I like the fact that we have sidewalks and streets that are reasonable and protective and safe within that development, within access north, because right now the fields, I just miss the fields, personally. It's not as mayor, that doesn't come into play. But we will, and I know that it sounds really odd, but based upon the usage of those fields, we'll have less traffic with this than we would have with the fields, which is just, I know you don't believe that, but it's really an amazing thing. And it all comes out of Finucane. So if anybody live on Finucane?
Yes, and there is not that much traffic.
Is it not bad on the?
It is bad now, people speed, but it's not from the soccer field.
That's what but you'll get about 99. I think the number was 99. It's hard to do, but anyway, yes.
Just one thing, and I'm going to defend this a little bit, which I know is hard, because I think all of us have had enough traffic and enough growth and enough of all this interference with the way we've lived or tried to live our whole lives, and we're not very happy about it. But the reality is that some of it's going to happen whether we like it or not. And one of the things in the city of Hayden or any city is you try to promote infill. Instead of going out and annexing the whole prairie out there and building everything out there, if you've got properties like this that are already in the city where the roads are done, where the sewer is available, where the street, where you're already figuring on taking care of the snow plowing and stuff like that, that's an advantage to the city to do that. That's a good thing to do infill. I know it doesn't smell good to you, but I've been here all my life, and I'll tell you, it is, from our standpoint, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. Whether you like it or not, and obviously you don't.
It doesn't have to be dense.
Yeah? Pardon?
It doesn't have to be dense. Pack them all in it.
And that's okay. That's,
All right.
and we're going back
That's
and
a
forth.
different story.
The density on this, though, just to you guys, the density is much less than the other developments that are around it, and that's an important piece when you went over density.
It's pretty
so
consistent with the
it's
developments
consistent.
around
So,
it.
Go ahead.
I was mayor at the time when they were doing Woodland Meadows over here, when it was built. And we were just coming out of the recession of the 80s, and it was an awful time. And we had people lined up to the streets out there screaming and yelling anti-growth. And one of the loudest screamers of all was Ron Rosenberger's wife. What do they do for a living? You know, but when they started, people say, well, we like the cattle. The smart aleck answer to that stuff is buy it and keep them there. We like them too. You know, we're not able to buy everything. We're not able to stop all the people from moving. We're not able to say you can't drive on this road. This is America, you know, people do have rights to do some things. That's why we have planning and zoning. That's why we have laws, and looks to me like they've complied with everything that they needed, and even maybe more than they had to in some respects. I don't like it any more than you do, but if we turn them down, if we sit up here and just turn them down for no other reason than we don't like the way they comb their hair, that doesn't work. You know, it's all right to complain about it, but you got to have something on your side when you make a decision like that. And you better be right, because we get sued. You remember here a while back, we got sued for $1 million over a fee. The Supreme Court said it was legal and all that. And you know what? Who ended up getting rich off of that? The attorneys. Because it cost the taxpayers here over $1 million and we accomplished nothing. In fact, what it did, it forced us to raise the fee because we weren't getting enough. And that isn't what we wanted to do. So.
Any other comments? Any other comments from any member of council? Council, you have an obligation or responsibility to either make a motion to deny, to make a motion with conditions, or make a motion to approve based upon the recommendations of planning and zoning. And planning and zoning was unanimous in their recommendations based upon the analysis and work.
Donna,
go ahead.
Was the condition that they removed the one about the
paved turnaround?
The turnaround, okay.
That was the only one that I
Yeah,
thought was
okay.
What we had
I
listed
just
as
wanted to make sure.
5B, it was just struck, yep.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Hearing none. Do you have any other motions?
I'll make a motion to approve it with the conditions that were agreed upon, plus the one that she just mentioned.
The striking that one.
The striking.
Striking.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. This is any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to just mention that when I look at everything, overall, I do think that having the sidewalks in the subdivision would be safer for the kids walking to school. I'd also like to have the sidewalks on Maple, but I realize that you know, they're not a full sidewalk, but I do think the subdivision itself, having the sidewalks for the kids, it's already zoned R1, and I think it would be a good subdivision. It's not, it's lower density. Lot sizes are fairly big, and so because of that, I'm going to support it. I just wanted to mention that before I vote.
Thank you. Yeah, once the vote is made, and I had the chance to talk to Councilmember DeLange and not to Councilmember Roeder, but once the vote, this is the time to identify your concerns or approvals. Once the vote is made, then the vote's made, so it wasn't my concern. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment
Yes.
too. You know, we have looked for many, many years at trying to improve Maple. It's probably, if not the most expensive and most difficult street to put sidewalks wide and stuff. I'm not sure what other street there is. I look at this as approval of this. We now have a small section. Yeah, we're not going to have sidewalks in it right now, but we now have a small section working towards that. And we didn't have that before. And like Dick said, we've spent an awful lot of money defending lawsuits. I'm not willing to go there. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We've had a motion, and I think a second, did we,
Yes.
Abby?
Yes.
And then discussion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember DeLang?
Yes.
Councilmember Roder?
No.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Thank you. 3A, action item, approval of 2021-2022 benefit plan with IIIA. Sean, is that you?
That is me.
Okay.
They're getting transition.
By the way, with the comments, please vote. And thanks for being in the back. We appreciate you being here.
My name is Shawn Landerfer. I'm Human Resources with the City of Hayden. We're going to be finishing our discussion about our benefit renewal. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we discussed the plans that we were given rates for with IIIA, and I think you all had a chance to review them, and they are a great opportunity for our employees. To move forward, we will have to approve the joint powers agreement and the participation agreement. There's a few areas I want you all to understand and make sure it doesn't surprise you. It requires a 3-year commitment. We talked a little bit about that a couple weeks ago. If you try to leave the trust within the first 3 years, you will be penalized with a 1-year payment that you will have to basically cover. So it's not going to make sense. We're going to be in there for 3 years. After we've been in the plan for the 3 years, we do have an option to do an approved withdrawal, but the approved withdrawal will still have a little bit there. As we pay our premiums, they're going to take and put money into the trust for us. And so they plan that money will cover the expenses that we have. But if at such a time as we determined we were no longer interested in being in the trust, there would be a 90-day run-out period, and there will be money that will be set aside that can be used for those expenses. But if for some reason expenses were higher than the money that was set aside, there could be a little bit of an expense at the time that we would try and withdraw. So ideally, we'd be with IIIA for a lengthy period of time. All full-time employees will be required to enroll with IIIA. Currently, right now, we allowed employees that had other coverages available to not enroll, but they do want all employees, unless they have primary coverage, so TRICARE or Medicare, you would have an option. If an employee is currently waiving, they can continue to do so, but that's a new thing for us. There's a board of trustees, and they manage, and it's a 13-member board. And then the contribution rates are going to be set annually for each program. So we'll get renewal rates every year, and that's set by the Board of Trustees. And then the financial operations of AAA are committed to the sound discretion of the Board of Trustees with the primary intent of being a long-term solvency of the program through the use of an irrevocable trust. The trust shall be actuarially sound. Its assets and income must be adequate under reasonable estimates for payment and benefits promised to beneficiaries of the plan. So that's just a kind of summary of the joint powers agreement, participation agreement. You had it in your packets and had an opportunity to read it. Are there any questions on any of that?
Sean, I did. Just, it seemed like there was so much information that it became cloudy as to whether or not they will cover premiums or they will cover benefits and claims.
They will.
Okay, and do you have history to be able to validate that?
Yes, that was in what we covered 2 weeks.
Okay, and I was not there, so I looked, then I read, and I still, it's like,
Yeah.
It's almost like they
had a
went way out of their way to tell us how cool they were.
with the amounts, and they've had the funds, they're solvent right now. They're doing fine. They're managing their money well.
Okay.
The primary purpose and objectives of the trust is to establish and maintain health benefits for the employees, to pay the cost of wellness programs designed to improve the health of employees, to pay for incurred claims and costs of administration and related expenses, to empower the trustees to enter into contracts and provide benefits, and to reimburse the trustees for any expenses that are necessarily incurred under their performance. So there's your, right there, number 3, it's to pay for claims and administrations.
But it's almost like they went out of their way to tell us how, okay, instead of, it's all right. You answered the question.
Each agency gets to appoint a delegate to represent the agency at the annual meeting. So we will have to determine at some point who we want that delegate to be for the city of Hayden. And there's information about the board and how it's set up and all that information, so. Okay, that was the joint powers. That's the legalese, and Caitlin got a chance to read through it. I don't believe she had any concerns.
I didn't have any on either agreement. Nope.
So then this is the proposed cost. So when we looked at the plans and the costs, we stayed with the same cost for employees that we've been using. And it's basically, it's a $20 monthly fee for an employee only. It's $70 for an employee with spouse, child, or children. And it's $80 if it's an employee with a family. And those numbers still save us money because ultimately this is saving us about $40,000 from our prior plans. So even with the standards for the cost there. And then we have health savings accounts. We moved these up a little bit just because the high deductible health plan did see a little bit of an increase for those that were on it. So now we're doing annual amounts of $1,600 for employee only, $2,900 for employee with spouse or child, and then we had the family at $3,500. So
What do you need from council?
the recommended motion to approve the joint powers and participation agreements with AAA and offer the 90A and high deductible health plans, as well as the O2 dental plan, using the recommended employee and HSA contributions from the 21-22 medical and dental rate sheet.
Do you need that approved every year, since we have to go for 3 years, or what do you need? Is there a timeline necessary?
This will approve the joint powers and participation agreements. This will be on file, and then at such a time, we would have to remove ourselves from the trust. So there would be an approval to remove ourselves from the trust, but we are in the trust and we will stay in the trust until such a time as we say we don't want to be.
Okay. Is there questions, first of all? Yes.
Can I just make a statement about this? I think a lot of people these days with what's going on in the country and healthcare and stuff don't realize just how difficult it is to come up with a decent healthcare plan. It changes from year to year, month to month and stuff. When I was with the county years ago, it got to the point, I mean, we get increases in 1 year of $500,000 and no way to budget for it. I mean, you wouldn't know. And it got to the point where the agents that were selling the insurance didn't want to talk to us anymore because we were switching back and forth all over the place and they couldn't depend on us. So we went self-funded, basically what you're doing. And I think the county's still there. I think they're still on that plan. We took a lot of beatings for it at the time for doing it because we had to raise the deductible and a little bit like that. But I think all in all, it's probably worked out as well as it could. And I want to thank Sean for taking the time, which I know she does all the time, to keep on top of this stuff and come up with the best plan she can financially and for our employees. That's what her job is, and she does it well.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
You know, Sean has been stellar in this. When she first came out with it, I was less than amicable. Is that a good way to put it?
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I was, because, you know, I had call them paranoid feelings about what are they up to and stuff. But in the same respect, I've had a lot of comments from the employees. They just simply didn't care for the other plan. And kudos to Sean for finding this. And if the employees aren't happy, well.
It helps when they're happy.
Yeah, but you balanced fiscal responsibility with the ability to be able to provide coverage.
Yep.
And that's not an easy, so thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just say great job, Sean. I know this took a lot of work doing all the research on it and other plans, and I think we have a winner. Thank you.
I had the pleasure of sitting down with Sean and going over this one-on-one with her, and I was very impressed with the in-depth analysis that she does to ensure that we get the best coverage at the most economical price. And in our agenda item here, or in packet, the medical renewal will result in an annual savings of $40,000 from our current renewal. And that's huge, because if you look at your premiums, it's usually a double-digit increase every year. So this plan will save us on the medical side $40,000 and on the dental $1,500. And I think that's so commendable that she was able to come up with a viable, good program for our employees. And
Maybe we could almost afford the sidewalk.
so, Sean, just great job. I appreciate what you did.
Do we have a motion to approve the joint powers and participation agreement with IIIA?
AAA.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
And Councilmember Roder?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we want to do workshop before report? Do we want to do, we're going to go report, workshop, executive session. So how do you want?
Let's do quick reports and then take a little break and set up for the budget.
How long will the budget take?
We're going to keep it pretty short. Like, we could shoot for 15 minutes?
I don't know. It's a question.
I'm saying we could shoot for 15
Okay,
minutes.
thank you. Okay, well, then go to
Up to you
reports.
if there's lots of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Just a couple quick items. The big one is Hayden Days is coming up next week, 23rd, 24th, and we're shooting to have it.
2 weeks. Oh, you're right. The end of next week.
The end of next week, yeah. So Friday and Saturday. And we're going to be like normal. We're going to have our parade. Starts at 10 on Saturday morning. We're going to have a flyover to start the parade. We'll have vendors and music in the park and just what we've done similar. I think that's great. That's part of making, keeping Hayden to have a small town feel as much as we can as we continue to grow. And you're invited to be in the parade, and we'll give you a little bit more detail. Appreciate Dick again for offering to allow us to use one of his vehicles for that. Mentioned the open house earlier on the letters. We're proposing to have that on July 23rd, and we'll provide, there was a copy we had mentioned, I don't know if you have it, there's a little postcard that we're going to send to those that got the letters. So the 1,700 folks that got the letters, we have a little postcard that would invite them to come to this open house. That was at the direction of the mayor and council to provide additional time, an opportunity for people that still are concerned with this to come in and ask questions and provide feedback. And then from that, we would bring that information to the mayor and council and have the mayor and council give us direction on moving forward with setting a hearing and with what, whether or not we're doing it for all 1,700, a portion, none. So that decision would still be made. And I'll send, I made copies of, and I'll just give it to you. It's just a short briefing that staff put together. I'll just pass on. That's the postcard. It's very brief. If there's something that we're missing you want to add, or you have any concern with the time, let us know, because we want to get that out this week so that they have notice of this as soon as possible. I'll give folks like a week notice.
Brett, did you say when the open house is going to be? I'm sorry, I missed that.
The time, it's on there, yeah. I think it's 2:30 to 6.
On the next Friday.
Next Friday, the 23rd, yeah. Yeah, so the idea was to do it partially part of Hayden Days. If people want to mix that, and there's people here, and they want to participate in the festivities, they can come in City Hall as well and ask questions.
Could you give them an option? I know that this a lot but we've answered hundreds of calls already, so I don't know that the follow-up's going to be that great. To provide another time if necessary, just during Hayden Days is an issue. But that's the only thought, so.
Like the day before or something like that?
Maybe something, maybe just do 2 days in a row.
Maybe we would get more participation linking it up with Hayden Days.
That could be.
I mean, we've done this before, and I think we had 12 people come.
Okay.
So we're hoping, I mean, this is one more opportunity, so.
Thanks.
My observation of this is that it isn't really clear to me that they're being asked the question, do you want to change your zone or not? It doesn't say that in here. It just says zone map amendment and newly adopted comprehensive plan. And to me, that doesn't say, by the way, do you want to discuss this letter that you got regarding whether you want to go to the new zoning or to change? I mean, that's not clear here.
So you'd like a little more tie-in with...
Well, isn't that
that's who it's going to.
Yeah, that, to me, it's like, I'm not sure what this is about.
Okay, we'll work on that. We're limited in the amount of words we can put on the postcard.
But I still, if we're going to send it, we need to send it with clarity. There was an individual that spoke today in the comments in the meeting earlier, and she had said that she wanted her zone back, and my thought was, no, because it's just the opposite. You want it to be clear.
But she still zoned that, the zoning.
And that's why, so maybe, Matt, I agree that at some point you could say, maybe the previous letter caused concerns and questions with respect to your zone.
Yeah.
We want the opportunity to be able to provide clarity and answer your questions and concerns.
Okay.
Something
we'll see if we can.
That's not a lot of.
Okay, appreciate that input.
You bet.
Brett, would that go out to, would that be emailed to council members so we'd have a chance to take a quick look?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll work on that early tomorrow because we want to get it out as soon as possible.
Yes, we want to give them people as much time as they can to be able to move their schedules, so.
Yeah.
For either one. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Brett?
I just mentioned next meeting on July 27th. Jerry has mentioned she won't be here, and so if there's another person that can't connect, then we won't have a quorum. So we need to know that as soon as possible if one of you can't make the July 27th meeting. Other than that, that's all I have until we get to the budget later.
This is a good time for discussion by any member of the council?
No.
Are we?
The only thing I liked, I heard a suggestion that for transparency to put our city meetings, as many as possible, up on Facebook, if we're able to do that. I know we have good technology, but I don't know if we have the manpower to be able to do that. But I think, because what happens, like I heard from, I went to my one bank, and the ladies there that work there, they wanted to come to some meetings, but they said, we don't get off work until sometimes home at 6 or 6:30, and they can't come to the meetings. But if it was on Facebook, or at their leisure, they can sit down and watch the meeting. That would be really helpful. So if we can maybe look into that possibility, like P&Z, HURA, kind of those important committees, I think.
I think it's a person power issue more than a technology issue, so.
Yeah, we have the technology now. It just takes quite a bit of time for each one. And HURA, really, if they want, that's going to be the call of HURA. I know they meet here, but that would be their call.
I just like as much transparency as possible. It's just easier for everybody. It makes sense, and it takes away that we don't hide anything, but we don't want to make it feel like we're hiding anything. So good. Good recommendation. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. Then we will move forward with the workshop. So do we want to, why do we need to stop?
Let's take a break.
Just like a 5-minute break.
Abby said to take a break. We were going to take a break.
My legs are bouncing.
That's right. Okay. So we'll take a 10-minute break.